The moment I knew that I was enrolled in the coolest seminary ever was when I walked into class one day and met Emily Saylor's father. In the early 1990s, he was a guest lecturer there in a class about worship and music. I didn't know he would be there. I didn't even know who he was. But there was this palpable buzz in the room, which reached a fever pitch when a student finally raised their hand and asked, "Are you the Indigo Girls' dad?" Don Salyers is a musician, a United Methodist minister, and was a professor of theology and worship at Emory University in Atlanta. I don't know why he was up in Minnesota that day, but it was very cool to learn from him for an afternoon. Don and his daughter Emily enjoyed deep conversations about music, spirituality, and the relationship between secular and sacred music, which may be one reason we hear such resonance in the Indigo Girls songs. Emily said there is a spiritual path to both secular and sacred music, and the deep human yearnings in them are one and the same sometimes. I've loved the Indigo Girls song Galileo for a long time. Perhaps it speaks to me as a recovering perfectionist. How long till my soul gets it right? Can any human being ever reach that kind of light? The yearning to become better people, the yearning to make meaning from our lives, the yearning to know what happens after we die. Is there reincarnation? What do we believe? How do we go about getting right with our souls? Every time I hear the song Galileo, I am charmed again by the choice to lift up a 16th century scientist to help us make meaning of our soul's journey. Galileo Galilei was an astronomer, a physicist, an engineer, whose discoveries caused him to challenge accepted beliefs about the universe and our place in it, which explains the lyric, "King of night vision, King of insight." He studied art and music, gravity and free fall, speed and velocity, and the principle of relativity, among other things. He improved a telescope through which he observed the stars of the Milky Way, the phases of Venus, the 4 largest satellites of Jupiter, Saturn's rings, lunar craters, and sunspots. He also built an early microscope. Galileo's pursuit of truth through scientific observation led him to agree with Copernicus that the Earth is not the center of the universe. Galileo publicly supported the theory that the Earth revolves around the sun, which went against the teachings of the Catholic Church in his time. He was investigated by the Roman Inquisition, tried for heresy, and forced to recant in the year 1633. He lived out his life under house arrest, and he continued there to study and write. Galileo never gave up his pursuit of truth, his yearning to make meaning out of life while reaching for that light. How long till my soul gets it right? Probably never. But I'm not going to give up either. Engaging with life means continually growing and learning and taking risks. Continually growing and learning and taking risks means that we go through many transitions in our lives. Through these transitions, we encounter endings as well as beginnings. There are various cliches that are meant to help us when something ends. When one door closes, a window opens. It wasn't meant to be. God has a plan, we just don't know what it is. Those cliches recommend letting go of control, but seem also almost to require us to totally give up our power. I think there's a balance we can reach between letting go of control and completely giving up our power. We can find a balance by being intentional about change and transitions. The guru of transitions, aptly named William Bridges, says that every beginning actually starts with an ending, although we don't usually think of it that way. We can navigate better through our transitions if we recognize and reflect upon the sequence that's actually going on. Transitions start with an ending, then we enter an empty time or a neutral zone, and then comes a beginning. Bridges says we usually don't deal well with endings because they are fearful. He says they break our connection with the setting in which we have come to know ourselves, and they awaken old memories of hurt and shame. But he says endings must be dealt with if we are to move on to whatever comes next. Bridges says people usually have a characteristic style for dealing with endings. He suggests to us, think about how you tend to act at the end of an evening with friends or when you're out on the town. Do you try to drag things out by starting new conversations as other people seem like they're ready to leave? What we fondly call the Minnesota goodbye. Or do you say suddenly, hey, had a nice time, and dash out? Or what about a larger ending, leaving a job or moving from a neighborhood? Did you go around to say goodbye to everyone? Or did you leave a day ahead of schedule just so you could avoid the goodbyes? Everyone finds endings difficult, so your style is not a sign that you have some kind of problem. Both the person who leaves early and the person who stays late are avoiding goodbyes. So what's your style of goodbye? How do you typically leave a party? Do you avoid going to the party altogether? Do you leave early? Do you stay late? I know some of you have earned that I closed coffee hour bumper sticker here at church. I know who you are. Or do you go to each person intentionally to say goodbye? Or maybe you pick a fight so you can leave angry. Well, it behooves us, I think, to become aware of our style of goodbye and then make a choice. Back in October, I gave you a 9 months notice of my upcoming retirement at the end of June. We were happy, sad together for a while, and then we got on with the important work of being a liberal religious community with progressive values. We had work to do here, inside our walls, and out there in the world. June seemed a long time away. Now we're getting close to the time to let go. Grief work is always part of transitions. Even when they are happy ones, joy and woe are woven fine into all that is our life. It's okay to feel happy sad and sad happy. We are human. We contain multitudes. We feel a lot of different feelings all at the same time. And there are so many stark contrasts that go on during personal transitions. And, of course, during this current devastating time in our country, you know horrible things are happening every day. Abductions, earthquakes. Yet, babies are being born. Weddings are being planned. Extraordinarily good ministers are being hired. Yeah? When I heard the wonderful news that Reverend Christopher Long would be joining you as your new acting assistant minister, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. It was like a warm, gentle rain just falling on my head and shoulders. Immediately after relief, I felt deep joy and profoundly humble, followed by a little bit of envy that you get to work and play and come to love Reverend Chris in the coming years. One of the most important things we can do to get ready for Reverend Chris's arrival here at First Church in August is to make sure that you and I engage in a good goodbye. If we end our relationship as minister and congregation well, it will create a beautiful space for the beginning of your relationship with Reverend Chris. How do we do this? Cake. Okay, there's a little more to it. The smart church consultants say it's important to keep asking ourselves, what do I need to do today to help the next ministry succeed? Perhaps you've heard the story of the two monks who were traveling through the countryside during the rainy season. Rounding a bend in the path, they found a muddy stream blocking their way. And beside it stood a lovely woman dressed in flowing robes. "Here," said one of the monks to the woman, "let me carry you across the water." And he picked her up and carried her across. Setting her down on the further bank, he went along in silence with his fellow monk on their way to the abbey on the hill. Later that evening, the other monk said suddenly, "I think you made an error, picking up that woman back on our journey today. You know we are not supposed to have anything to do with women, and you held one close to you. You should not have done that." "How strange," remarked the other monk. "I carried her only across the water. You are still carrying her." Experts say that when there is a transition between ministers in a congregation, a good goodbye involves naming our disappointments, our regrets, and talking directly to the person about any lingering anger. They say we should let go of old grudges, appreciate each other, and say thank you. Appreciating each other and saying thank you are the easy parts, the yummy parts, those shining jewels that we can carry in our pockets after I leave. Naming our disappointments or regrets or lingering anger is harder to do. But if we do it, we'll emerge stronger, more compassionate, and create a healthy space for you to welcome our new minister. Sorry, your new minister. See, there it is, like, oh, there's a separation. Oh. So today, I just want to issue an open invitation for you, if you have any, to process with me any baggage you might be carrying from the last almost 16 years of our relationship. And who knows, I might have the same regrets and disappointments. If you'd like to talk to me about any oops moments or ouch moments, just let me know. We'll set up a time to talk. Over a cup of tea sounds great. And this is standard practice. There's nothing strange going on here. Now, I am a conflict-avoidant Midwesterner. I don't really want to do this. But I will if we need it, for the sake of healing, for the sake of getting our souls right, for the sake of Reverend Chris and the beginning of your relationship with him. The past is with us in a decision to trust. So let's make sure we let go of the past and let the future be open. And of course, we'll carry the good memories into the future, those shining gems of meaningful times that we have shared. I will carry you in my heart always. Always. So, for example, Liz here is part of my origin story at First Church. She chaired the search committee that brought me here. She has a coffee table in her living room, affectionately called the Dina table, because she decided she had to run out to the secondhand antique shop and buy one when she learned that she'd be hosting me and the search committee in her home the very first time we met each other. Well, as our ministry relationship evolved, I officiated Liz and Bob's daughter Maria's wedding, dedicated Maria's daughter Kaylee in our child dedication ceremony, and very sadly, officiated Maria's memorial service after her tragic death in a car accident. A minister does not forget these things. I will not forget that honor about accompanying Liz and her family through those profound transitions. Letting go is often hard, but it can be beautiful. Several years ago, when I scattered my dearly beloved father's ashes in a lake that was important to him and our family, I improvised on that Philip Booth poem that we heard a little earlier today to companion myself in that sacred moment. I said out loud to the clear blue sky and the sparkling water, and to my Father's Spirit, "Lie back, Father. Let your body's bones be tipped back into the cup of my hand gently, and I will hold you. Spread your arms wide, lie out on the lake, and look high at the gulls. A dead man's float is face down. You will sift and settle soon enough where this lake bed holds the river that journeys to the sea. Father, believe me, when you tire on your long thrash to your island, lie up and survive. As you float now where I held you and let go, remember when fear cramps your heart, what I told you. Lie gently and wide to the light-year stars. Lie back, and the lake will hold you." I am not dying any more than anyone else in this room, but in a few months I will leave you when I retire on June 30th. I am staying in Milwaukee, but we won't be maintaining an active connection. When we run into each other around town, which will be great as happens, I'll be delighted to see you and chat, but we won't talk about church. We'll keep that healthy boundary. I will not be attending services here for at least a year, maybe longer. And even when it does become appropriate for me to come back and sit in the pew with you again, our relationship will be different. Our relationship as minister and congregation will end when I retire. I will not be preaching, teaching, officiating at weddings or memorial services, or providing pastoral care. I will no longer be your minister. I'm not going to mince words. A minister's retirement is kind of like a death of a relationship. The Reverend Mark Morrison Reed wrote, "My years as a congregant did not prepare me for a cruel irony. Ministry is a source of unrequited grief. I regret not having read the fine print. If I had, perhaps I would have made another choice." No, I wouldn't have. But the print was very small, the phrasing paradoxical, while I was young and eager. This is what it said: "You will love your parishioners with all your heart, but not befriend them. You shall die to the congregation so that the ministry will live. We are not indispensable, and each of us will be replaced. Or as Liz said, we each do our part and then step aside. In a few months, I will die to my role and be reborn as someone I don't know yet. I have to go through the ending of my 28-year career, dwell in the neutral zone for a while, we don't know how long, before I discover who I am as a retired person and begin anew. What I do know with great poignancy is that I have left my fingerprints here and there in this community, and I hope you will remember me well. I do know you got this. I know you're going to move through this transition with grace and love because I have seen you do it before. You know how to do this. Our souls may never get it just right, but the process is the important thing. The journey is the destination. Among the gratitude and the joy, the bumps and bruises, the microaggressions, mistakes, and apologies, when we move forward with love at the center, we keep building ourselves as trustworthy people, as a trustworthy people. I could not be more delighted with the search committee's choice. Reverend Chris is a very lucky minister, and First Church, you are truly blessed.